Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to talk a little bit about Genshin. Oh, sorry for showing the better game. It's time for us to talk a little bit about Genshin Impact and the newest set of weapons that will be coming in version 5.8. Because I'm going to be honest here, it's some of the worst and the most predatory design we've possibly seen in the history of the game. It turns out that it's not just kits that are going to add quality of life fixes to the update. It's also going to be the weapons too. It's a 2-for-1 combo. So let's go ahead. Let's start getting right on into it. So for some context over here, these are details about Ineffas as well as the new weapon event that we are going to have available. For you to understand just how awful this new weapon is for the game, just read this tagline. It significantly boosts attack and lunar charged damage. And you want to know why this is so bad? If you're all familiar with my channel, I uploaded a video a while ago talking about how Ineffa's kit is a disaster, reacting to Glaive Keo's original take about how locking a mechanic like lunar charged behind 80 pulls and the character's kit is such a massive issue. They're shipping the fixes to the mechanic, not in the baseline game and the baseline systems, but they're paywalling it. And a lot of people had stuff to say to me about my take of Lunar Charge being a paywalled fix. They were saying stuff like, whole video's a waste of time. Lunar Charge isn't even Electro Charge. It's even weaker than it. It's weaker. Baseline Lunar Charge is worse than baseline Electro Charge. Ineffa's Lunar Reaction is the reverse of Power Creep. The new reaction is weaker than the OG Electro Charge. I would agree with this if the Lunar Charge reaction was actually stronger than the original Electro Charge, but in many cases it's similar or worse. Oh, now I see why. So what they did was they went ahead and they decided it wasn't enough for the new reaction, the actual fix to Electro Charge, to be bundled in with a limited character. They also decided that the bundled in reaction was going to be worse than the baseline Electro Charge unless you pull the weapon too. So Lunar Charge is the fix to Electro Charge, which is a bullshit unused reaction. You need to pull the character to access Lunar Charge. And even when you pull Ineffa, Lunar Charge is worse than Electro Charge unless you pull her weapon as well. Guys, this is predatoriness. This is the paywalling of game mechanics. This is the paywalling of fixes taken to a level that is absolutely absurd. You gotta get the kit to unlock it, and then to make it usable and not just worse than not using her. Another 180 pulls, ladies and gentlemen. Another 180 pulls. And you wanna know what this effect reads as? All nearby party members deal 40% more Lunar Charge damage. It's not just her Lunar Charge that's getting buffed. It's the entire team. And you might as well just not even use the mechanic. Not even pull Ineffa if you're not going to pull her weapon too. Because you're taking a massive hit. You're using a reaction that's worse than the other one. Unless you go ahead and you get the weapon. And this is the thing. Hoyo has done this before. They've locked a unique elemental reaction behind a kit. And they did it with this unit. She's called Nilou. She was actually released in Sumeru, right? And she was released 2 years and 9 months ago on October 14th. And one of the big important parts about her kit is the fact that she modifies the bloom reaction for Dendro, right? What she does is she makes it so that the new Dendro blooms, they explode a lot faster. They cannot be triggered with, Hyperbloom or Burgeon, and she's a different way to deal Dendro Hydro damage across your teams, right? This is really similar to how Lunar Charge actually exists. It takes an existing reaction and it makes it better in one way, but adds some additional restrictions on top of it. Ineffa appears to not have any character restrictions at all to gather her new reaction, making her even, giving her even more potential to be overpowered, and Nilou doesn't even have a weapon that directly boosts it. This is Nilou's weapon. You just get an HP increase, and then when an elemental skill hits opponents, you gain an EM increase. And EM is how you buff the damage of your blooms. This gives EM to the party. It's somewhat similar. It boosts the EM, which boosts the damage of your blooms. It essentially does the same exact thing as what this weapon does. However, the wording on this weapon ensures that you can use it, but you're only getting a quarter of the effect using this on other characters other than Ineffa, and it also directly buffs the reaction itself. If Nilou, when she was released, simply had a signature, right, that just said bloom damage, is increased by like 40%, maybe we wouldn't be talking about this right now. But this is so on the nose and so absurdly predatory. And when Nilou was introduced for Bloom, when Danger was still new to the game, not that big of a deal. But when you're shipping something like this for a reaction that's as old as Electrocharge, that's been in there and has sucked balls since the start of the game, this is what people are looking forward to. This is what people wanted to actually make so many more units on the roster usable. And if you don't pull the weapon, this is going to be worse than what the existing interactions already are. And if you do, it's going to be better. And so the end result, ladies and gentlemen, is just, this has to be one of the worst signs I've ever seen for the future of this game. This literally is, in my opinion, it is spelling the end for Genshin's monetization as we know it. Characters, kits, all of that are slated to be a literal two-piece combo where they will intentionally, at least according to these comments, nerf the character's kit and only make it usable or really competitive with the existing options if you pull the weapon too. And boy, oh boy, seeing something like this where it's directly buffing every single character on your team is terrifying. What do you think is going to be the next thing that comes up? They're probably going to have a lunar melt, right? A lunar vaporize, a lunar bloom, a lunar crystallize. And what do you think those kits are going to look like? Yeah, this version of lunar vaporize that we just came out with, it's actually going to be worse than the baseline vaporize if you use that character. But we're going to make sure to have a weapon. And the weapon effect is going to say all nearby party members deal 40%, 50, 60, 70% more damage with lunar vaporize, with lunar bloom, with lunar crystallize, with lunar superconduct. And you might as well not even bother pulling the character unless you're going to pull their weapon too. Because this, to me, just reads they are separating out part of a character's kit completely just so that you're forced to pull it to actually experience the real deal. Because I'm going to be real here. Having a baseline 40% nerf on all of my lunar charge damage, unless I have this weapon, is one of the most disgusting fucking things I have ever seen from a developer. This isn't even from the same perspective of like, oh, isn't this comparable to like Spectral Frazzle? Isn't this comparable to like, you know, Frolova's weapon and all of that? Some people might be saying that. This is literally something that replaces the existing reaction. And if Ineffa is going to be in a state where she actually nerfs your team's damage by slotting her in, and the only way to make her an upgrade to a team's electrocharge output is to pull her weapon, that's fucking insane. That is actually insane that they're willing to go that far. And naturally, right, we're gonna have to wait for the numbers. We're gonna have to wait for the testing. I guess these nerds over here have been like watching Zajeff videos and he just like looks at leaks and everything. So I guess we'll take their take as it is. But I am not gonna be surprised to be seeing stuff like this again at all. Because Nod Cry appears to be the region of the moon. And if Lunar Charged is what's coming up, they're gonna be doing it for every single elemental reaction. And at that point, guys, it's clear. These weapons won't be usable on other characters. These weapons will only be usable on their intended unit. These weapons are going to be required for you to make the full use out of the character's kit. And so you better be ready to either save up around 360 pulls for every single Nod Cry release when Genshin Impact gives you 50 pulls a patch. So yeah, enjoy waiting 5 patches to be able to get one character or get a complete character. Or you're going to have to spend upwards of around $400, $500, $600 for every single release. And that's to be able to use the older members of your roster. Guys, realize this. This could have just been a feature update to the game. Lunar Charge, Ineffa, all of this stuff, it could have just been a baseline addition to the game. Much like how Genshin Impact has done it before. Where in version 1.3 of the game, they simply just took the entire Geo reaction and reworked it completely because it was not balanced, because it was completely dog shit, because it wasn't strong enough. They just made a sweeping update to the game instead of releasing it in a character's kit and instead of also releasing it as part of the character's weapon. But this is not the direction that this company is going down anymore, because I do believe that Genshin Impact is, unfortunately, and I think it has been in kind of like farming mode right now, where they're not really looking to acquire very many new players, and so they're simply looking to extract as much value as possible that they can out of their existing ones. And so what this means is that you're going to get nickel and dimed for features, updates to the game that were originally free, because they don't care about how many players they're actually losing anymore. If they can get you to spend, drop another $200, $300, $400 every single update that you weren't doing before, who cares if you leave, right? They're going to try to convince as many of those spenders as possible to just keep going and going. And I think they're going to continue to push the envelope, see how predatory they can get, how much more they can separate kits from the weapons, in the hopes that they can maximize as much revenue as possible. Because we've never seen it this bad before. It wasn't this bad with Nilou. It wasn't this bad with her weapon. It wasn't this bad with Geo. And yet all of the stars are aligning for some of the most fucked up balance changes that this game has ever had. And I think that this is just the start of a flood that's going to come forth. And so my suggestion, again, for every single Hoyoverse player, every single Genshin Impact player, if you want your game to improve, do not pull Ineffa. Do not pull this weapon. Do not pull a single unit who uses any of these fucking lunar mechanics. You need to make a personal boycott as a player, much like how there are many players that didn't pull any of the Natlan characters because they didn't want to support exploration quality of life locked behind a region and locked behind a unit. And if you don't want more character locked reactions, and then those character reactions being locked further behind a weapon for it to be usable, then you need to make sure that you avoid anything associated with this lunar charge shit. But that's going to be very hard to do for a lot of Genshin players, because you want to know what they're going to do with these kits? They're going to make them overpowered. They're going to make these units the strongest in the game. Much like how Mavawiga, Sitlali, Skirk, etc. have the most predatory designs in their kit possible, and then are also the strongest units in the game. And they're going to HP inflate in the Spiral Abyss, make the content unplayable unless you have those new damaging characters. And so the end result is, it's a combination of all these different factors, guys. They're trying to extract as much value as possible. And if you're along for the ride, you enjoy it, you're still enjoying the game, I'm not going to be the person that tells you to quit. But if you're somebody that's not willing to drop $500, $600 every single update for the character and their weapon just to be able to play the content in the game, like Stygian Onslaught or even the new Abysses, hell, it might be worth quitting now. Quit before it gets bad. This game has been on a downhill trend ever since Fontaine, and while you might get baited by new character releases, when I see that these are the new weapons coming to the game, I don't care about Varka anymore. I don't care about Alice. I don't care about any of these tease fucking units that have been like in the cooks for like fucking 4 or 5 years. I don't care anymore. Because what the fuck is the point when they're going to ruin it with every single other thing that they're adding to this game, making it so hilariously pay to win, or honestly, pay to not have a dog shit time? It's ridiculous. And I think this should be the straw that breaks the camel's back for a lot of players, but it won't. So yeah, that'll be that. Let me know what you all think about this disastrous situation, and peace.